night, echoes of the future in the radio light. Sits home deep like a heartbeat pulse, retro dreams where we are lost. Neon waves take us back in time.
Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, Versace Stoner here. We're in a very special episode of VSW podcast. Tonight we got a very special guest with us, Mr. One, Evan Ginzburg. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
You know, I was reading some of your credentials and, I have to say, quite impressive. You've done a lot.
I appreciate it.
But let's start something basic. Obviously, it's pro wrestling. What got you, when did you get into wrestling? When did that become an interest?
It was 1972. I'm 107 years old, man. So I'm a kid, and I'm home on a rainy Sunday, and I'm bored out of my mind. This is pre-video games, pre-internet, pre-everything, pre-cell phone. And there's a UHF dial, this mysterious UHF dial. And I start fiddling with this. And it's all like PBS and foreign language stuff. And all of a sudden, I see this huge guy pounding on this American Indian. And I didn't even know what it was. It was pro wrestling. And that was Chief Jay Strongbow. And that was WWF. And I'm a kid. And I'm like, wow. All of a sudden, Strongbow's doing this herky-jerky war dance. He's coming back like Hulk Hogan 10 years later. And he chops this huge monster down. And you know, I'm like, my eyes are popping out of my head. This is great. I've never seen anything like this. And I made a mental note of when it was on, and I started watching every week, and it was like an addiction. And then I begged my father, please, Dad, take me to wrestling. And he was a taxi driver. He never broke 25 grand in his life. And, you know, any extra expense was a hardship, but he took me to Madison Square Garden. I walk in June 24, 1974. And the first thing I think as I enter the building, wow, it's in color. Because we had a black and white TV. It was like Dorothy dropping into Oz, you know, like,
yeah,
they were like Marvel superheroes and villains. And the main event was Nikolai Volkov and Fred Blassie against Bruno and Strongbow. And in my wildest dreams, I would never imagine that many years later, Nikolai Volkov would be a dear friend. That night, the Valiant Brothers wrestled Dean Ho and Tony Gurria. The Valiant Brothers became dear friends. Johnny would sleep on my couch. You know, I became an agent years later. I'm getting ahead of myself. But, yeah, man, I go back 53 years, 1972, 53 years with this.
Know, but you mentioned something kind of key. You know, you've seen this big guy beating on an Indian, Native American, whatever you want to call it. You know, similar to me years later when I saw, this guy in yellow trunks. I happened to just be turning TVs like you. I'm a little bit, I was born in 83, so I'm a little bit younger. But, I'm sitting there flipping through channels, and I see this animal. To me, it was like an animal beating this guy in yellow trunks in a steel cage. And, what it was WrestleMania 2, the ending of it.
Oh, yeah, Bundy, yeah.
And I seen King Kong Bundy. And my dad was a pro wrestling fan from, he knew Bruno, he watched that era, his big guy, he was fan of the Grand Wizard and Ernie Ladd, all those guys that came a little bit before, Vince came in and really took over. And so, we were watching, and he kind of got me into it from there. And then from there, I just found VHS tapes. Because now we're talking a little bit past the 70s. We're talking into the 80s. The VA, the video stores started opening up. They started carrying these things.
Yeah.
So we started renting them. But I would obviously, at that point, they had stuff from the 70s still available in the 80s. But it was those larger than life characters that I think grabbed a whole generation of people. If it was just two normal guys fighting, I don't think it would have had the same impact.
Yeah, well, Johnny Valiant used to say, when you're in the ring, you look 10 feet tall to the average person. And Johnny Valiant was just a regular kid from Pittsburgh. And he said he bulked up on pasta and going down to the Y and lifting weights. This was before everybody was juiced up and, before there was a gym on every corner. And you dye your hair blonde and you wear outrageous clothing. And now you don't guy walking down the street, and yeah, these guys, they were like superheroes and villains to us kids. And what people don't understand about that era, the 70s, early 80s, pre-Hulkamania, pre-rock and wrestling, we were mostly a mark audience. We were a blue collar mark audience. Vince McMahon Sr. would have the Polish strongman Ivan Putski, the Hispanic superstars like Victor Rivera and Pedro Morales, strongman Bruno Sammartino, the Irish Davey O'Hannon. It was a very blue collar ethnic crowd, and we believed for the most part. And eventually you get smartened up. Partly, we would wait outside for autographs, and you go, wow, the heels are nice. And some of the faces aren't so nice. Dusty Rhodes and Andre the Giant would never sign autographs for us kids. Never. Not once. They wouldn't so much as look at us. And there's Billy Graham, nice as could be, and Lou Albano, nice as could be, etc., so on. And George Steele talking normal like any guy on the street.
George Steele's my greatest example because he was one of my favorite wrestlers as a kid because I just loved the whole ripping the turnbuckle, savage, green tongue, everything. And when I found out later that, this dude's like, just a normal teacher by day. And he was a very smart professor. And I'm just like, I love it because that's what I'm all about in wrestling. I love the character work. What you bring to the ring is a character. What you make me believe in. Part of it back then, they made emphasis. You would talk about someone's height and weight. It didn't matter if they really were that tall or weighed that much. But if you heard the ring announcer said it, well, that's what they were.
Yeah, I mean, Andre was never 7'4". I would wait outside the door at Madison Square Garden. It was clearly labeled 7 feet for deliveries, 7 feet. It was right on the door. He never had a duck. He was maybe 6'10", 6'11". So, yeah, it was a lot of hype with the weights and the heights and all of that. But, it was fun. Yeah, it was magic. It was magic, especially for kids and marks and, but once you're smartened up, you enjoy it on a different level. It's like going to a movie. Clint Eastwood or Charles Bronson isn't really shooting anybody. It's suspension of disbelief, and you enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, with my son, for instance, I taught him that wrestling is for most part a show 99% because, I didn't want him watching what he was watching, and me at the time when I had my son, I was doing videoing for a couple of small wrestling companies, and one of them had me doing these little skits involved, and a couple of times I had to take bumps, and the kid would get all upset. So I had to really explain early on, look, no one's getting hurt here. I don't want you doing this stuff in school. Don't be pile driving anybody. Don't be doing any of this. Because, on TV, if you don't know it, well, you're thinking these guys can, take these moves forever. I think that's where, at some point I realized it's like I've been in a fight now, as I got older, I've been in a couple of fights. No one's taking these kind of moves over and over. The fight's about, a couple minutes long, couple fists. But, no one's suplexing anybody. No one's doing any leg drops. Right. No one could take this.
No hurricane ranas in street fights.
No. But, in valid wrestling now, then you got some of the technical moves. And then, wrestling's a great mix of just all variations of fighting.
Yeah, and wrestling is performance art, and you're telling a story. And let me just add this. I was associate producer on the documentary 350 Days, and some of these guys have broken virtually every bone in their body. They've had unbelievable injuries, and they hate the word fake because gravity isn't fake. You throw a big guy through the air, there's only so many bumps on your bump card, as the wrestlers like to say.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing fake about what happens in that ring. It's just that it is controlled.
And
It's
predetermined.
controlled to the sense, it's predetermined, but it's controlled in the sense that, yeah, I'm going to throw you on your back, or I'm going to throw you through this table. It's going to hurt, but I'm going to make sure that you don't break your neck and that your spine is okay.
Except, the 300th time you go through that table or whatnot, your spine isn't going to be okay.
It's not.
I've seen, as an agent, Harley Race in a wheelchair, Lou Albano in a wheelchair, Iron Sheik, Abdullah the Butcher, etc., so on. I mean, this will catch up to you after a while, and some of them don't know when to quit. They keep going too long, and
unfortunately, that generation and a few generations even after that, into the rock and roll era, probably even into the attitude era, took it too far, went too fast. They didn't really know. Today's guys work a little bit smarter. There's different regulations too, but
they work less. They wrestle a lot less, yeah.
And they work a little bit smarter. They're not taking these insane bumps every night. You got to remember, you had house shows almost every night. People like Flair were working hour matches every night, just going.
Sometimes they work 2 1-hour matches the same day, matinee and evening. And the title 350 days comes from the fact that NWA champs of that era wrestled literally 350 days. So when we did that movie, Bret Hart said as WWF champion, he wrestled 330 days. Greg Valentine said as Intercontinental champ, he wrestled 320 days. So, what's also not fake are the divorces, the kids not talking to you because you're never home.
No, you got to be dedicated. It's a dedication to this sport, and if you're not dedicated, hey, you're not going to make it to where you want to be. But there's a lot of sacrifice involved. If
a lot
these
of
people
guys
aren't with you for it,
a lot of guys asked to give up their belts. Bruno said, "I can't do this anymore." A lot of these guys, Terry Funk is NWA champ. He's like, it's too much. I'm in a different country every night. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not like the guys of today. They win the belt, they fight 1 month, and then maybe a month later you see them defend that title. These guys were on the road. They were going, and they had to give. If they're champion, you have to give the best match of the night.
Roman Reigns wrestled 5 times this year. 5 times. He's making millions of dollars. It's a different business for the guys on top.
Bruno didn't make none of that kind of money, and he wrestled way more than that.
Bruno made $250,000 in the 70s, which was a lot of money back then, but it's not 15 million like Roman Reigns. That I could tell you.
No. And like I said, the industry, I think, has changed a little bit. And if I was that young kid and turned on the TV, depending on who was wrestling on TV, I don't know if I would have been involved. If I would have said, oh my God, this grabbed my attention. Because not everybody's a colorful character. Some of these guys just look like regular athletes or regular people. They're not colorful. They don't come out like a Kamala used to come out in the 70s. I mean, early Kamala was a scary figure. I remember I have an old magazine. He's holding a Hulk Hogan head. That was a big feud back in the day, Hogan and Kamala. And, they made him like a tribal savage, and it worked. People believed it. People believed he was eating raw chickens and stuff.
Kamala was the sweetest guy. He was an R&B singer, songwriter when he retired, and farmer, that kind of. He was a good guy. I mean,
for the most part, I think a lot of them were decent. Were decent people, it seemed.
The heels, very often the heels are super nice guys, and sometimes the faces are egomaniacs. Not always. I mean, I'm making a generalization, but yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it all depends on the face. I mean, at the Hulk Hogan level, the Randy Savage level, you're probably not stopping as much as, the at that time, the Bret Hart level. You know what I mean?
Bret Hart was phenomenal.
Yeah, He carried a whole generation. He took over from what Hogan had and brought it all the way to what Michaels could do.
And he was a technician. He was a wrestler. He came from a wrestling family. He wasn't just a cartoonish character.
He had
that
more
guy
than
could
5
deliver.
moves.
Yeah.
He had more than 5 moves.
Well, that's part of the problem today. A lot of these guys in WWE, it's like same 5 move syndrome. The fans expect to see the same finisher. They expect to see the same moves, and that's all they're getting. And it's too bad, because Bret Hart would come out, 15, 20, 25 minutes and deliver. I mean, guy could do it all.
I think people saw the success of, people like Hogan could do it. He didn't have to have a complex move set. Savage didn't really have to have one. Ultimate Warrior had like 3 moves, a couple clotheslines and a press. He just had all hype and a lot of screaming, yelling, and just madness. But if you take those, they work for these guys. These guys were more over than anybody at the time. So I think a lot of it they want to repeat that, but the problem is the fans aren't that dumbed down anymore. We know that there's better things out there. We know there's more variety out there.
It's like a smorgasbord. I mean, you could watch WWE, TNA, AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, the Indies. I mean, you could pick and choose. I mean,
I stick mostly with Indies just because I enjoy watching the arc. I enjoy watching these kids that have come out of these local schools in my area, making it to the top, and then I see them in, NXT or WWE in a couple of years.
Yeah.
I
love Indies.
And for a lot of it, I think it's better wrestling, better storytelling than what you see on TV today. So I don't watch a lot of TV wrestling. From time to time, I do click on AEW. I like New Japan. I do. It's just the timing on that is just really hard to figure out. The time zone differences and stuff, and I need an app. But when I do get into it, I do enjoy watching it. I like their wrestling style. I always thought New Japan was one of the premier, world recognized, federations in wrestling. But for me, what's on TV today, I believe, is a lot of just watered down. It's a lot of commercialization. You were saying your dad was a taxi driver and only made so much. Now you got tickets that are almost $25,000. WrestleMania.
It's ridiculous. They have $37,000 packages for WrestleMania 42. They have $70,000 VIP packages for WrestleMania 42. $70,000.
$70,000. You're talking about a year's salary for some people. You're
some
talking about 3 times what you
make that in 2 years. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You're talking about your dad. That's 3 years of his working salary to go on to one pay-per-view. It's gotten astronomically out of reach for the common man. It's no longer blue collar.
Yeah, what they've done, WWE, is instead of going to the Garden, Madison Square Garden, 12 to 14 times a year, they'll go 3 or 4 or 5, and that becomes a graduation present, a Christmas present. They run December 26th. So the people are going to throw down $500 to take the kids, or $750, or, that's your Christmas present. That's your graduation present. That's your birthday present. So it's not a blue collar thing anymore. And it's a shame, because they're outpricing certain people. It's just not.
See, that's where I think the indie scene comes in is the savior and all, because you can see the same style, if not better, wrestling. You can see people that have gone there and have come back wrestle, and for fractions of the cost. I mean, I'm talking some tickets at $10, $20, $30, and you're getting names. You're getting national names.
I was watching that cash grab in Paris, that WWE pay-per-view the other day, and they got Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella's slamming Becky Lynch's head against the announcer's table, and it's missing by 5 feet, like every time. It was like a parody of a wrestling match. I'm watching that going, I see better matches than that down at the Elks Lodge 10 minutes from my house. And these guys are paying $3,900 ringside. $3,900 for that.
And it's insane. I mean, I tuned in, I stopped watching major wrestling probably 2002, I'll be honest. When I got out of high school, life just took over and I did other things. I wanted to be a wrestler. I went down to the Killer Kowalski school, but I'm 5'8". They told me I'm too small at the time. If I went now, I would have been, and he was running, they would have said, fine, come on in. We'll make you a mid-card champion. But back then, as we talked, everybody had a different stature. You had to be a bigger guy.
Yeah.
I could have been a ref.
Kowalski was a friend of mine. He's on the cover of my book. Yeah.
But he's a legend around here. A lot of the heritage, a lot of the school where I'm in, in New England here, a lot of the teachers have used, were students of his. So a lot of them are lineage, and the lineage gets passed down. And, that's what you see in this Northeast here. Down south in Texas, you're going to see, a lot of, a different, the teachers down there. And if you go up to Canada, you're going to see a lot of Hart, but this area here, it's all Kowalski, style of wrestling. And there's nothing wrong with that. He to me, was one of the greatest wrestlers to exist.
Oh, yeah. Kowalski is on the Mount Rushmore of heels. He was on top for 30 years. I'll tell you the famous Kowalski story. He told it to me. He's in the ring with Yukon Eric, and he leaps off the top rope. And back then, big guys weren't leaping off the top rope a lot. So he accidentally hits Yukon Eric's cauliflower ear and rips it off. Legit. Ripped off his ear in the ring.
Oh.
So Kowalski was the sweetest guy in the world. He was a super nice guy. He felt terrible. So he goes to the hospital. It's a true story. And Yukon Eric's whole head is wrapped up in gauze because his ear was ripped off. And Kowalski looks at him and he thinks to himself, "You look like Humpty Dumpty." He's thinking this, and he starts laughing. He starts laughing, not realizing that the other guys in the room were legit newspaper reporters, who were not smartened up. They're there because the villainous Kowalski ripped off Yukon Eric's ear, and now Kowalski has come to the hospital to mock Yukon Eric. This was their interpretation. So the next day, it's all over the mainstream press. That Kowalski came to the hospital to humiliate Yukon Eric, and he became the #1 heel in the world like overnight. And so if you talk to people, they'll say, "Who's the greatest heels of all time?" And they'll go, "The original Sheik, Buddy Rogers, Killer Kowalski, Prime Ray Stevens was great, face or heel." These are the guys that the legends revered. And Kowalski's in that Mount Rushmore, believe me, if people know their wrestling. I mean, he retired late 70s. He's way before the Hulkamania era. A lot of fans don't really know him.
No, they don't, unfortunately. You have to go back. You have to find some older tapes. There is historians that have these matches, but I mean, it's not like, the Hulk Hogan era wrestling or after that where you could just, there were whole mass release VHS tapes going out to video stores and people could see this stuff. But I know a lot of people, like I said, that trained with him after. He opened the school. He started teaching the craft. He started up here in Malden, Mass. And he did a lot of work up there. And at some point, in the beginning, he didn't even have a ring or nothing to train these guys and girls. He was just doing it right on mats in a gym. And, I've talked to a few of these people. I've had a couple of them come on my show. I've talked to people like Chris Blackheart and others, and they've all worked and trained under Killer Kowalski, and a lot of them, will say it's like it was being like you said, being trained by royalty.
Oh yeah, as great as anyone. And I saw Killer Kowalski as one half of the Executioners, 1976. Him and John Studd, who was his protege, Chuck O'Connor. And they're at this Sunnyside Garden in Queens. No air conditioning, dead of summer. It was like 120 degrees in there. The fans are dying. Kowalski's going for 45 minutes relentlessly with a black mask over his head. Yeah, he was like a machine, that guy. He was amazing. And he was no kid at that point either. That was close to when he retired. So, Bruno revered Kowalski and vice versa. Kowalski was one of Bruno's greatest opponents.
Yeah, I mean, those two are kind of synonymous, and in a lot of ways, I think they were both underrated, where they didn't get the right amount of limelight. If they had been put out 10 years later, they would have been doing, everything that Hogan would have been doing, or Savage would have been doing, or
the other side of it was Bruno wrestled monthly in these arenas, and Hogan only came in 3, 4, 5 times a year, almost like a special attraction. And Bruno was champion a lot longer than Hogan. He had 2 championship reigns.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like we said, back in those days, even before Hogan era, it was still more of a blue collar thing. People were going to these nightly shows. It wasn't a big, expense. It was something to do. I remember my grandparents coming. They came from Italy, and they would go to the Boston Garden constantly to watch pro wrestling because it was something to do.
And it was cheap. It was $6 at the Garden when we used to go in the 70s.
That's entertainment. That's entertainment. Now, at what point did you say, this is all nice and dandy, and I enjoy watching the shit, but I want to get in. I want to sink my teeth in a little bit.
Well, everything happened pretty much naturally. I was a big fan, so I started writing for the early sheets. Then I started my own sheet. It was called Wrestling Then and Now, and eventually a documentary based on it called Wrestling Then and Now with Kowalski came out. And I started doing radio in New York because my radio mentor, Fred Giabold, over at 50,000 watt WBAI FM, he loved wrestling, but he was from the Midwest. He grew up on the AWA and the WWA. Yep. So he's like, Evan, why don't you come on? Like, he knew me from my newsletter. Why don't you come on and do a wrestling segment? And I'm like, okay, 50,000 watt New York station, I'll do that. And I was there for 16 years, and we would call up Lou Thez, and we would call up Ivan Koloff, and all these legends. I mean, Sherry Martel and Eddie Guerrero and all these guys we would talk to from this 50,000 watt New York radio station. And I got friendly with Johnny Valiant. And Johnny Valiant says to me one day, why don't you be my agent? And I'm like, I've never been an agent. He said, you're an intelligent guy. Just book me. I could do wrestling. I could do comedy. I could do acting. And I said, I'll give it a try, Johnny, and it just took things. So one day I have Johnny Valiant and Nikolai Volkov booked for an autograph appearance. And the executive producer of The Wrestler, the movie The Wrestler, the executive producer was named Scott Franklin. His best buddy walks into this autograph appearance and he says, quote, you guys would be perfect for Darren Aronofsky's wrestling project. Do you know who Aronofsky is? I said, yeah, I'm a film buff. I said, I've seen all his
Who doesn't
stuff.
like Pie?
Yeah, I saw Pie, 3.14. Requiem for a Dream. Yeah.
That's probably my favorite film that he did. But the
refrigerator is chasing Ellen Burstyn in the living room.
You know what? I never got into hard drugs because of that movie. I stayed at pot, never went further. The movie scared me.
Yeah, that'll scare you.
Bullshit. Oh, Mike on. I'm sorry.
This is my co-host Victor Sin.
Okay.
He was putting the kids down, but
Victor, you missed the first 2 hours.
I was busy chasing a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old around, so it was
okay.
I think you guys missed more here than I did there. Craziness goes on here. Craziness.
Well, my wife's car is either stolen or towed as we speak, so I'm in the middle of that also. There's a lot of craziness everywhere. Tomorrow I'm working a wrestling convention, and
you beat me.
So you still do it today? You still are you still booking guys today, like to make appearances? You say you're doing a convention tomorrow.
I'm going as a vendor tomorrow, but yeah, on occasion we'll still book people. I'm more involved in the film end of things. We did The Wrestler, we did 350 Days. We're working on other projects, and yeah,
film is nice. Film is nice. I like film.
Film is forever. Film is forever.
It is, but I'm a big horror movie buff. Film. I'm actually going to horror conventions all this weekend, but all this month actually. But I'm getting into short film and making some shorts and such. I got a couple cameras, but
great. You never know if I can take something.
You never know, but and I love just putting creativity out there. Putting something to pen to paper and just letting it blossom. If it goes, it goes. If it don't, it don't.
Throw enough
So,
stuff against the wall, something will land.
still similar to writing. I mean, even in the early days, I'm sure you were like, I'm writing to write because it's a passion. If it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
But film is just something about. But I like the whole scene of it too. There's a kind of a commodity. Everybody, for the most part, kind of helpful hands. Everybody want to be a part of. Everybody happy to be a part of. The wrestling scene can get a little bit more aggressive, I feel, and a little bit more tit for tat, and I don't know, different scenes.
Yeah.
Hey, first off, can I butt in for 1 second?
Yeah.
I just want to give let our guests know that my hat is off to you 120% because you have to. Versace will tell you we've had people cancel on us last minute for 2 reasons, and what you're going through, and you're still coming on the show. I commend you, sir. Thank
And
you very
what?
much.
No, it's
Thank
a double. It's a double commending because I actually had a family emergency last weekend and had to cancel on him, and he rescheduled for me. So earlier this week, rather. So he actually rescheduled and had something happen. It's like double.
Thank you. It's old school. The show must go on, and you make a commitment and you do it. And same thing in wrestling. You learn. This guy's honorable, and this guy, you wouldn't spit on if he was on fire. It is what it is in wrestling.
Speaking of spitting, did any of you watch that football game last night? Oh, that guy got spit right on. What was it? The Jet player. Was it the no? Not the. Was it the no? The Eagles guy. He spit right on the Dallas Cowboys. Spit right in his face. He got ejected from the game, but you could see the spit just land on his face, and I'm just like,
6 seconds in, and that happened.
yes, welcome to the NFL. Here we go.
First play on the Eagles having defense spit.
I'm just like, damn, this is gonna be a wild season. But no, it must have been surreal though at a point now. So now you're traveling with these guys that you saw on TV not too long ago, or you would go and see in person, and now you're working with them. You're
Now they're
making money with
sleeping
them.
on my couch.
Yeah, I mean, now you got them on your couch. You're hanging out with Johnny Valiant. You're doing all this stuff. It's got to be a surreal feeling going on.
Tell you a
here.
funny story. Speaking of surreal, Greg Valentine's crashing in my place one night, and I live in an apartment building. We walk out of the apartment, and as we walk out the door, a car screeches to a halt. Guy jumps out of the car and goes, "You are Greg Valentine." And Greg Valentine deadpan goes, "Yes, I am. Yes, I am." The guy just stopped traffic. It was wild. Some of these guys are really tremendously famous, and you don't even realize how famous a guy like Valentine. I used to see him headline the bar time and time again.
Because they didn't push Valentine, but at the end of the day, Valentine was a solid face in pro wrestling. Everybody knows Greg the Hammer.
Valentine
They
against
know him.
Backlund at the Garden was great. Valentine against Tito was great.
Even Tito. People forget about Tito, but Tito's just stable. Like all these guys from that 70s, they allowed, WrestleMania 3 to even come to fruition. They had to work through WrestleMania 1 and 2, a lot of them.
Tito's underrated. Tito was tremendous.
Funny story, I got chased by an angry Tito when I was a kid. So we had not house shows, but we'd have an indie shows coming around. This was like early 90s. And Tito happened to be one of the people on the car. He was facing the Warlord. Now, after the show, I'm just a young kid. I'm sneaking around, and I'm just, being nosy. And I see a basement light on. So I look down there. All of a sudden, I see a half-naked, screaming Tito Santana at me going, "Get the fuck out of here." But like they were trying to keep kayfabe, but obviously I must have peeked into the locker room, and he was pissed. And plus, he was naked from the waist down, and it was just kind of awkward. I went run. I never ran so fast in my life, but I was like, shit. I hope Tito doesn't, at this point, I'm like, I'm still a kid, but he was an underrated wrestler, even as a tag team wrestler, I thought, because I grew up watching him with the tag team. What was it with
Putski?
Am connection.
Oh, yeah. I'll
You
tell you a funny
know.
locker room story. When we were doing research for The Wrestler, I would take Aronofsky and the team to indie shows. And I go into the dressing room one day and I see like this massive, like pale white blobbish entity. And I didn't even know what it was. And all of a sudden, King Kong Bundy turns around. I had never seen anything so big. it was wild. So, yeah.
I was working with Aronofsky. That must have been surreal too. I mean,
Aronofsky's mother was a New York City school teacher. He was a regular kid, no huge ego or anything, just a driven artist and brilliant. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And many years later, just walking in Manhattan, I bump into him. I'm walking this way, he's walking that way. And he goes, Evan. And all of a sudden, he starts hugging me. And he's with these two guys. I don't know who they were. And he goes, Evan helped me make The Wrestler. And you could see he was grateful because basically I was the wrestling guy. I brought in Mickey's stunt double, Mickey's trainer, the ring. Even in that merchandise scene, I acted with him. And that's all my merchandise over there in that scene. And I helped, make it.
you helped make the set. You helped, bring what, because obviously when you have, a producer wants or a director wants to make a movie, they know so much about, but to make it authentic, you got to bring in people. You were one of those people. You got to bring in. We're gonna make this look as most authentic
Every
as can.
weekend for 6 months, we were on the road. We went to CZW, Cage of Death. We were backstage with Mickey Rourke. Am I allowed to curse on your show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can.
So we go to Cage of Death. They bring us backstage. It's like a mash unit. They're sewing up these guys. They've been through glass, fire, everything. So I said to Mickey, what did you think? And he goes, that was fucking wild. CZW, Cage of Death. So
I remember CZW. They still exist, but back in the day, there was something. But I mean, you'll hear people today still to this day that The Wrestler was probably the most best portrayed experience of what an independent wrestling life is.
Oh yeah, I know wrestlers who, after they retired, they were pushing a broom, they were working, the door at a strip club or a rock club, bouncing, and guys that headline Madison Square Garden. It's not glamorous, and the myth. They all pissed away fortunes on wine, women, and song. It's nonsense. Johnny Valiant never broke $100,000. Number one tag team in the world, the Valiant Brothers in the 70s.
They didn't have the money to blow. They were, not
they
for
didn't have
nothing.
it in the first place. So
look at a Brutus Beefcake. He used to work the T line, and he got busted selling coke. My friend used to buy coke from Beefcake down in Boston.
Allegedly.
No. Allegedly buying, but this was the life. Beefcake wasn't an overpaid wrestler, even though he had WrestleMania appearances. He didn't make millions of dollars.
Well, I could break it down to you because these guys were my friends. A lot of these guys on top that era were making, let's say, $400,000 a year, which sounds like a fortune of money, but about half of that goes to taxes. They're supporting a family back home. They're on the road 300 plus days a year, hotels, 3 meals a day, steroids, painkillers, whatever you needed to get to the next town. It's not the windfall that people make it out to be. Now, Nikolai ended up financially well, and Bret Hart ended up well, and Lanny Poffo.
But that was I think Bret Hart, Bret Hart made it to the next era of wrestling where they started
Bret Hart was making millions in WCW.
And merchandise.
Lanny Poffo left well, but a lot of these guys never made the money that people think they made, and they ended up with blue-collar, working-class jobs when they retired, and it's not.
Let's face it. What are you supposed to do if a lot of these kids didn't go to college? They just started wrestling when they got out of school or whatever they did. they only know wrestling or they only know so much.
Yeah.
When you get to a certain age, if you don't, especially in today's market, if you don't have all these degrees, they won't even look at you. Never mind, even if you know the shit. I can only imagine it was the same back then. So you are stuck with these jobs. Well, yeah, you used to be a wrestler. Well, then, yeah, we'll put you to manual labor. Everybody's working manual labor.
One of the unsung heroes of pro wrestling is Davey O'Hannon, who was in the WWF in the 70s. He got all these guys jobs at the New York Times as delivery guys. S.D. Jones, Dominic DeNucci, Baron Cicluna. These were big names, and they did not leave the business with a lot of money, but they got a job with benefits and pension, and Davey O'Hannon hooked them up. And, people really don't understand. Oh, they're all just, pissing it away on drugs and hookers. And, some yes and many no. Like anything else, it depended on the individual.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody in every industry. I mean, I think a lot of that are in generations in wrestlers, especially to a certain point. They acted more like rock stars and athletes and to a level. Yeah, they partied. Some of them partied hardy, obviously. Some of them had addiction issues. That's legitimate. They talk about
the
that.
other thing the fans neglect is if you're working 300 plus days a year, you're inevitably going to get hurt.
And you're never going to take pain pills, and you got to keep taking them to eat them. I mean, and if you want to keep your job, you got to keep doing it. We had a girl on the.
You just hit the nail on the head. They were scared of losing their spot, scared of losing their push.
I mean, I hate to say it. We had Princess Victoria on the show not too long ago. She got injured. Moolah lied. Basically, they fired her, and Moolah said that she got caught selling drugs, and they had to let her go. She got canned because she couldn't compete no more because she was injured. You don't want to lose your job. You're on the top, or you're making a certain thing. You leave for a 6-month recovery, you might come back to nothing.
Yeah, so you wrap up whatever's injured, you take some pills, and you plow ahead, and eventually, your body gives out. It is what it is. But these are some ruthless, wealthy corporations that push these people beyond human endurance with no pensions, no 401ks, no health benefits, and
you almost had a union in wrestling, almost.
Yeah. Jesse Ventura got snitched out by Hogan, yeah.
But, I mean, would it have been such a bad thing? Would we have seen some of these guys still with us today? Perhaps. I think we lost a whole generation of wrestlers. People like Big Boss Man and shit, way too young.
These guys, I saw an interview with Barry Windham. He said he worked like 90 straight days for WWF. Without a day off. And he said they didn't even have the courtesy, the consideration to book you in the same geographic area. You were on the West Coast one day, the East Coast the next day, Europe the next day. They're just flying you.
They're not even allowing you to do like a loop.
Exactly. So, there's a reason a lot of these guys did not end well. It's they were pushed. Bret Hart in 350 days said it was like they treated us like farm animals. That's the word he used, farm animals.
And you can see that. I mean, because you mentioned it, big, greedy corporations are running these things. These aren't local enterprise individuals. It's not even what WWF was with the father when it was more localized and more, we're running territories. Now you're talking, like you said, a global global, and they do a lot of things that other corporations do. And a lot of them is, a lot of big corporations, the first goal is let's get rid of all the little people. How many people did Target and Walmart or Amazon put out of business? How many, video stores did Netflix kill off?
Yeah.
Blockbuster did the same. Then Netflix came in and took off the next ones. Same thing with WWE. They'll go in, they'll take out whatever. They're already doing it now. They're polarizing it. They've taken new, their promotion in Japan, Noah. They're putting in a WWE champion. They've taken TNA, putting in a WWE champion. they'll start to slowly close the gaps, and you'll see everything just WWE again. They have an ID program, but it'll put a hinder on the indie scene eventually. They'll start pulling top talent from the indie scene, which will leave promoters. Where's my roster? I've been sitting here for 2 years building this kid up, and now you're gonna come and pluck them. But we saw what they did, how they worked in the day. We saw what they did with WCW. You know that they're a ruthless organization to make money.
I am not a fan of the greed, the ruthlessness. It's absolutely disgraceful. In one brief period, Billy Graham, Bushwhacker Butch, and Virgil all needed GoFundMes for the hospital bills and burials. It's disgraceful. This is $1 billion organization. Take half of 1% of your massive profits and set up something to take care of your legends and pioneers. To just look the other way, or have the fans save Paul Orndorff's house. The fans save Kamala's house. How about a corporation that made millions of dollars off of these guys?
How many cons did Virgil have to do to get his bills paid? I mean, the guy had to go to every con available, and hopefully people would show up. But at one point, he was in every main event next to DiBiase. He was working every night. He was doing his work.
Yeah, the fans used to laugh at him, but this guy main evented major arenas. He main evented Madison Square Garden, and then he had another run in WCW. He had a better run than a whole lot of guys. And a
lot of these, like we said, a lot of them were underrated. I think a lot of them were overused, underrated, and just not pushed to the public.
I mean, I'm not saying he was Fez, but the guy had a good career.
I mean, like someone like even Matt Osborne, people don't look at him as very important, but he opened up as WrestleMania. He opened, he was the first iteration of Doink, which became very successful.
He had a good career. He headlined in the territories. Sometimes fans have like a good list and a bad list, and sometimes they just don't know, and they confuse. They'll go, so and so was just a jobber, and first of all, jobber is a derogatory term, and guys like Johnny Rods could wrestle circles around some of the big lumbering main event guys. That's the irony.
The problem, the thing is that the common fan doesn't understand that the superstar can't be a superstar without the so-called jobber. You need enhancement talent to do just that. Enhance the talent. Make them look good. That's why you would have these guys.
Johnny Rods is in the WWE Hall of Fame for a reason, because they respected and appreciated him. And he was a better... I saw Johnny Rods wrestle Billy Robinson at the Garden. It was like a clinic. I saw Johnny Rods wrestle Fujinami for the junior heavyweight belt. I saw Rods and Black Gordman on an indie. He was a tremendous wrestler. You can't go on a one-loss record. And he headlined in other territories. Headlined. This is what they don't understand. Mid-'80s, you had guys losing regularly, like Butcher Vachon, Jerry Valiant, Buddy Rose, and these guys were huge stars prior, and people they just know them from that era. They don't know their whole history. Baron Cicluna main evented match.
Well, I think if you're a real true fan, you were a fan of if one Luna hit, people knew who Butcher Vachon. People remembered the greatness of the whole line.
I saw Butcher Vachon wrestle Bruno for the belt. When he first came in, he was pushed, and later he settled in. Like you hit a certain age, you don't want to always be moving and relocating every 6 months or whatnot. So guys like Cicluna, they settled into a different role, and this way they could stay in one area. And it's exhausting every 6 months to pack up your family and go to another part of the country, or people don't understand the big picture.
Well, no, they don't live that life. It's kind of like doesn't exist to them, because they don't realize they're stuck in either the same job or the same job location for whatever. That they don't understand what it's like to have to move like that. But
speaking of locating, what happened to your co-host? You have to locate him. No, I'm joking.
He might have went missing. I don't know.
Guy's MIA.
Gone. Um, he lives in Vermont. Anything's possible out there. It's like the Wild West. But but I think, like I said, with those guys and everything, I think a lot of the people just didn't realize what their roles were. You hear like you said, you mentioned the word job. We used to have like the old Monday Night Raw used to be all enhancement talent versus regular talent. Then you'd have a main event of two main names. But we would get a lot of more variety out of people, and we would get, you'd have us see all these, named guys that you'd maybe never see again, or maybe you would follow their career and realize they worked a lot of matches. But I see some of them still wrestle. Like I see Richie Rich. He wrestled Bret Hart on Raw. He's a good wrestler. He still wrestles today on some of the local shows near where I live. He still, does some seminars here and there. But
Brian Walsh was from your area. Brian
Yep.
Walsh wrestled Shawn Michaels on Raw. He was tremendous. He wrestled all throughout Europe, and people don't really know him.
No. But I mean, again, that's why I like I said, I mean, these guys, even on TV for the most part, I don't know about that era, but at some point, they started plucking from the indies, and that's when they all came from somewhere. So that's why today, I mainly watch the independent scene, because someday, yes, those guys will, like Anthony Green, if you ever seen him, he was on 205 Live, then he came back. But, people like Dango have wrestled from this area, and I've seen people getting picked. I know a few of the kids that have been ID'd, I've watched them come out of New England Pro Wrestling Academy and a few of the other schools. Like I said, I enjoy the arc. I enjoy seeing the people start here, watch their character grow and grind, and get to where they want to go in the industry.
Absolutely. I love indies. And I saw Mick Foley before he was famous, Cactus Jack on the local indies. Guy was sleeping in cars. You never, and I interviewed him early on. Low-Key, Homicide, all these guys were kids back in the day. And I was at a card I'll never forget, New Jersey Indy, and in the opening match, it was Sabu against Chris Candido, and he's sitting there with Sonny. And I was introduced to all of them, and they were nice kids. I mean, kids, like
yeah. I mean, they got to be like 18.
20.
Yeah, they're straight out now.
And who would ever imagine, the glory and the hell that the three of them would go through in this business? She's in jail. Sabu and Chris are dead. It's like, this business can really be life-changing for better or worse, really.
Well, depending on that journey, and like you said, these guys today aren't handed $15 million and saying, look, you're only going to have to appear this X amount of times and so forth. They had it, like you said, travel as much as you can because you needed to work. If you didn't work, then you weren't getting paid. And especially those ECW days, I mean, it was almost, an untouched territory of where they could push wrestling to as far as the violence.
I used to go down to the ECW arena all the time, and it was wild. I mean,
oh yeah,
to see the gangsters come out to that music and just, it was the adrenaline rush. Public Enemy, Terry Funk and Sabu, some of the greatest matches I've ever seen in 50 years of attending. And then you had the other side of it when they would have Eddie Guerrero against Dean Malenko, matches like that, which were amazing. I think where they jumped the shark was when you would have like the third flaming table, law of diminishing values. By the end, it was overkill, I think. But some of what ECW put out was phenomenal. I used to see him at the Elks Lodge in Queens. I'll be there tomorrow for this wrestling convention. Yeah.
No, definitely. And, they inherited a lot of, I would say wrestling royalty. I think they had, when they, when ECW changed his name and came out, this is what we're going to do. And and throw the title away and all of that. It was something new. It was something fresh. And again, those early days, you know, the pay-per-views, they weren't overkill of violence, but it was more violent than what WWE had to offer.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually as bad as what Japan was doing for death matches, but it for me being 16, 17, 18, it
It
was
was wild.
perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I would
I
be
was a
going to
fan.
wrestling shows. People would be, you know, showing their tits. It was just a fucking chaotic time in wrestling, and wherever you went, even WWE, because you know everything was sexified, and you know you had all the women being pushed for certain things, and you know the guys had you had Val Venus and shit. Everything was just wild times in the Attitude Era. Today, you know, like I said, totally different atmosphere, the fan base, everything. It's not there. But when you walked into these places, it was wild. It was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a big ECW fan. Like I said, towards the end, it kind of ran its course. But some of the nights you were there, it was wild. And some of those wrestlers, I mean, Dean Malenko was some technician. That guy.
He was probably another underrated wrestler. I think people just didn't get exposed to him. WCW got exposed to him, but the WWE side never did, and they didn't get to appreciate him.
Yeah.
You know, while WWF was running great, doing, you know, their more showmanship, WCW was where all the grapplers and freaking, you know, technicians were hanging out. And you had a lot of that. While, you know, Brett was the technician for that, WCW was more the, you know, wrestlers for the wrestlers wrestle, I would say. As a kid, I found it completely fucking boring. I wanted to watch the bright lights and the freaking WWE theatrics. But as I got older, I would go back and watch it because, well, they're actually wrestling. Shit, this is, you know, this is good moves. But, you know, it's totally different. Like, you know, I watch wrestling. I've introduced it to my kid. Like I said, I've showed him a lot of the old stuff first. I know. This way he could see, you know, what wrestling used to be like. And he enjoys that actually more just because he fell in love with characters like Big Boss Man and stuff. He's like, oh, police officer wrestling, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know. But so you got asked to make this movie. You say yes, of course. You know, you're gonna help make this movie. Was this your first film you produced?
We had done a film called Wrestling Then and Now, micro-budgeted indie documentary on wrestling. Killer Kowalski, Don Arnold, Homicide, Nikolai Volkov, others. And but it was basically shot on pennies, and it was from the heart. And you can watch it on Tubi. It's still out there. And that was our first film. But like I said, I was doing this autograph signing with Nikolai and Johnny, and we just were like in the right place at the right time. And the executive producer's buddy invited us, and we had a meeting. And, you know, I brought Tiger Khan, who worked in Calgary. I brought Nikolai. I brought Johnny Valiant. I brought Nikolai's manager, Nikita Brezhnikov. And we just hit it off. We were laughing. Johnny was a stand-up comic. Nikolai was very warm and friendly. And we just all hit it off. Maybe 6 months went by, and all of a sudden I get a call from them. We'd like you to be the associate producer, the wrestling guy. And, you know, you handle all the wrestling stuff. And basically that's what I did. And Offer ended up training Mickey, and he brought in some of his guys, you know, while we were working on it. But I did 5 or 6 casting calls. I brought in Ron Killings. I brought in Necro Butcher. I brought in Romeo Roselli. Tons of these guys. I connected them with Ring of Honor. We shot at Ring of Honor, that last scene where Randy is wrestling and he's having the heart attack. And if you look at the autograph scene, I'm actually acting with Mickey in it, and we improv'd it. Mickey just whispers in my ear. He goes, just improv. You know, like I never acted in my life. No makeup, nothing. Aronofsky just got like this glint in his eye, like Evan, like, you know, asked Mickey for an autograph, you know. And so it was magic. The whole thing was magic, and we worked on it off and on for 7 years. People don't understand what goes into a quality film. 350
Now,
days
let me ask you first, though. What was the budget of this film? Do you know?
was $6 million.
Okay, so you're not working on pennies. Now you get a real big budget to play with.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not a big budget for a mainstream film. That's an indie film. If you did the Avengers or Spider-Man, that would be the food budget, you know?
Yeah. No, but I'm saying you got a big budget compared to what you had for your first
We
film. So now
wanted to get $18 million. I was at the funding meetings, and we only got $6 million because Mickey's star had waned at that point. He was not the big star he was in the 80s. So it was tough getting the funding. And a lot of those scenes, those are real wrestling fans. Those are not extras in most of those scenes because we couldn't afford the extras. And we would shoot at Ring of Honor, and the fans would be getting angry. Like, these guys are interrupting our movie, our wrestling show, making this movie. So at one point, Aronofsky actually gets on the mic and goes, guys, just let me do 1 or 2 more takes. We'll be out of here quick. You know, we'll do you proud. Don't worry. We're gonna. So it was like guerrilla filmmaking. We like went in there.
you went in there.
Yeah. It was a wild experience. So I'm sitting at the New York Film Festival, Lincoln Center, prestigious film festival. The film's finally done, 2008, and 2,300 people, $40 a ticket, sold out. And I didn't edit the movie. I just helped with the wrestling. So I'm sitting there. My girlfriend's with me, who's now my wife. And all of a sudden, that autograph scene comes on, and she's looking at the screen. She's looking at me. She's looking at the screen. She goes, "That's you." You know, like how surreal this all is. And later, the scene where Randy the Ram is with his daughter, and he's crying. He goes, "I'm a broken down piece of meat."
Yeah.
I look around the section where we're sitting, and everybody's crying. And I'm like, wow, this film works. Because, I mean, it's the first time I've seen it. It works. You can't fake crying.
No, people get moved by the wrestling because I don't think a lot of people understand how gritty, grimy pro wrestling can really be, and on the indie scene, how grueling it is.
Yeah.
It brought a lot of light, and I think Aronofsky did a great job portraying that and really making people feel a way.
Yeah, Aronofsky is a creative genius, and you know, I haven't worked with him in 17 years. I'm not saying it to butter him up. I'm saying it sincerely. I saw The Whale with Brendan Fraser in a movie theater, and the last scene, he's basically dying, and the film ends and the credits roll, and every single person in that theater just sat there. We were so drained, emotionally drained, we couldn't get up. That's the performance that Brendan Fraser made in The Whale, and that's the performance Mickey made in The Wrestler. And that, like I said, the scene where he goes, "I'm just a broken down piece of meat," I think that's going to be iconic. I think 100 years from now, people will be moved by that. And it's an honor to be attached to something like that, that'll live forever. And 350 Days, I'm very proud of. I mean, millions of people have seen it, and it's from the heart. And half of those guys are dead now. Wondorf, Snooker, Ox Baker, Butcher Vachon, Lanny Poffo, Nikolai, half that cast are gone now. So when you create something, it's forever. And, you know, they'll always be up there. And that's a film we're proud of. And, you know, I'm not a kid, and the rest of my life, I want to write books and make films and do quality work from the heart. And it's not going to be all wrestling. I did a film, Teresa Sario Alive Again, about wounded warriors, and you know, we had the cooperation of the U.S. military, but you're not.
Who directed that film?
We did. Rye
Oh,
Joseph. Rye Joseph was the name of the director, and we were the producers. And you do quality work from the heart, and one way or the other, it finds an audience in some capacity, some more than others. But like I said, we did wrestling then and now. If we spent $1,000, it was a lot. This was 25 years ago, and it's on Tubi, and thousands of people watch it. So
I'm probably gonna watch it tonight. I
yeah,
mean,
check it out.
you
Check it out.
know,
You'll see a younger version of me. It's 2002. So
and just for that, I might want to rewatch The Wrestler too, just to see the scene with you in it.
oh,
See,
thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's very rewarding. Not everything has, people have this misconception. You're a wrestler, you're on TV, you must be rich. No, most of them aren't. You're a filmmaker, you must have millions of dollars. No. Mickey Rourke didn't even get rich from The Wrestler. It was a low budget indie film. Mickey Rourke, his real payoff for The Wrestler was he was hot again right after that, and he did Iron Man. He was the heel in Iron Man 2 or 3, and he got
he
$1
got
million.
good exposure. He got good exposure.
He got $1 million for that heel role in Iron Man. That was really his payoff for The Wrestler.
Yeah, saying, "Hey, look, I can still act."
Oh yeah. Oh, he's a tremendous actor. There's no doubt.
But I mean, like you said, I mean, similar to what these early guys are making, and even what guys make today. I mean, I know a lot of them make big money, but on the other end of it, on the lower end scene, you're saying indie scene, you're not making a lot of money. Guys are bringing home $40 to $80, $100 here. A couple guys are making
They're
in the
lucky.
hundreds,
They're
but
lucky they have enough money to pay the gas and tolls and food or whatnot.
nowadays, yeah, and so it's like, yeah, what's the real payoff? The real payoff is getting seen by somebody else, getting picked up and going and making, getting on MLW or getting over freaking here, wherever you're
Climbing
gonna
the
go.
ladder. I
Yeah.
saw this kid, Jordan Oliver, a few years ago on a local
Oh
indie.
yeah, I know him.
Yeah, I said this kid's great, and I just saw him the other day. He was on the pre-show for the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. So you climb that ladder slowly, and at some point, the right people see you, and the word of mouth gets around. But it's a tough road, and you still have to pay your bills and support your family and work a day job.
You do, but would you say that in today's market, the way and the variety and the amount of with social media and everything else, would you say it's easier for these guys to get recognized or harder than it was before?
Both, because now there's thousands of wrestlers and hundreds of wrestling schools and thousands of promotions. It's easier with social media to get seen, but sometimes the wrestlers themselves don't grasp. WWE doesn't want to see crazy high spots. They want to see you can control the fans with the palm of your hand. You could tell a story.
You can make them money. You can make money. Get people to come and see you. You
have
want
to have a
people
certain
in
look. I see some great wrestlers who aren't in great shape, and WWE wants you to look a certain way, and some of these guys don't. Some of them don't quite get it, or they don't have the discipline to get it. But
yeah, but I mean, growing up, I used to see people like, we mentioned King Kong Bundy, but I mean, there was people like Haystacks Kowloon. Now, to me, he didn't look in great shape.
Well, Vince Jr., not Senior, Vince got this whole body beautiful fetish where everybody has to look like a Greek god and have a six-pack of abs. And I grew up on Harley Race and Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson with the beer bellies, and these guys were among the greatest workers of all time. So to me, it's ridiculous, but this is what they've trained the wrestlers and the fans to think.
But I heard that's also what they're doing now with the ID program. They want, a certain age, and they want a certain look. They want a certain body physique. Otherwise, they're not really going to give you that ID. It doesn't really matter the spot or what you can do. Because if you're not able to work on TV, they don't want you anyways.
Yeah. They expect a certain look, WWE, but you have a Jade Cargill who looks like a statue, like chiseled in stone, and she's not a great wrestler. It's just having a great look isn't enough. You have to have the charisma and the the move set and everything else, just looking great. You know, I see some of these women wrestlers in WWE. I can't tell one from another. They all have the gaudy outfits and the dyed blonde hair, and it's like they're almost.
I mean, I'll put it this way. I watch a lot of Tubi myself. I watch a lot of Tubi horror, though. There's a lot of great-looking models and actresses in a lot of these horror movies, but their acting is very bad. The movies are terrible. They can't do nothing but just get killed and scream. Every other line is terrible. It's the same thing. You need a total package, and you can sacrifice one for the other. I don't need a hot blonde if she can act really well and sell me this movie. She can be ugly for all I don't care.
Oh yeah,
I want the total package, at the end of the day. Sometimes I think wrestling gets, like you said, or at least certain promotions get a little bit too hung up on the imagery. It's like, if this person don't look this way, they're not going to get the push. It's like, but the people still like her just the way she is. It's fine.
Yeah.
But now let's, you said, like you said, you wanted to write books. You have written a book. Have you written multiple books? Just one
I've written 2 books: Apartment 4B, like in Brooklyn, and currently Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. They're short autobiographical short story collections about my life. I've juggled working in wrestling as an agent, making movies, and also working as a teacher. I've juggled 3 careers, and there's short stories about that and the legends I've worked with, and also the losing a lot of people along the way. Nikolai, Lanny, so many people. Johnny Valiant. Johnny Valiant was hit by a car. I mean, so I wanted to honor a lot of friends in the book as well. And I think you'll be moved by it. It's on Amazon, 4.9 out of 5 rating. There's 20 or so reviews on there, and people tell me, they're moved to tears by some of it. And I didn't want to do the typical wrestling book with a bombardment of data and results and title changes. This is who these wrestlers are as real people. These are my friends. And
well, that's what I'm saying. You're right. And people forget, at the end of the day, these guys are real people. They're human beings. We watch on TV. There's humans that we're watching. We're not watching robots. We're not watching AI. These guys and girls have real emotions, family, friends, likes, dislikes, everything else. And when they step out of that ring, that person comes out. And they have friends. People, are friends with them. Even if they're celebrities. Celebrities have friends too.
Celebrities are flesh and blood people with their own good and bad qualities, their own strengths and weaknesses, and and you get to know them on a personal level. Like, I'll hear people go, some of these wrestlers aren't that friendly when I see them at conventions, and I'll go, do you realize, like, some of these guys are constantly in pain? They're in their 70s. They just got off an airplane thousands of miles. They need the payday. They're here because they weren't taken care of. It's not easy.
I mean, I went to a show once, and there was a national superstar. I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to mention promoters. I don't want to get into all that. But I went to a local show, and there was a national name on the show. He was scheduled to do a meet and greet prior. I wanted to get, the photo autograph combo like I like to do at a lot of places. I'm still a mark at the end of the day for this shit. I got no space for shirts and stuff, but I got more shirts, freaking 8x10s, and
I got tons of memorabilia that I sell. They can follow my social media, or if you're looking.
I don't need to buy more. I need to sell more.
Oh,
and now I've started with the horror stuff, going to these conventions, coming back 30, 40 autographs a show. But that's neither here nor there. Where was I going with that now? Shoot. No, so I went to this show, yes, and the guy wasn't there before the show to do the meet and greet. He wasn't there at intermission either. But he was there to wrestle the main event. And then after the show, I saw him taking some photos. I went over there and said, "Hey, can I get a photo?" And he kind of was like, "Ah, if I have to take a photo with you, everybody's gonna freaking want one." Like, I was like, "Look, I'll just do it really fast. No one will have to." He's like, "Fine, fine, 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 fine." So I do the photo and whatever, and I'm just like, "Damn." But then, later on, I realized, A, he was 2 hours late due to the traffic of having to drive. B, he got shafted half the pay he was promised for the show.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. People don't
So he was
realize.
already fucking pissed by the
Yeah,
time
yeah,
he
yeah,
had
yeah,
to
yeah.
go. And then you got some guy fucking going, "Hey, can I get a photo?" He's like, "Fuck you, man." He gave it to me, but, he wasn't in the best of moods. And at the time, I was kind of like, God damn, fuck him. But, you know, after reading stories and looking into it, I was just like, I understand that. I get that. I get why people get crabby. And a lot of these guys are, you wrestle a match and after the show, they're there. They don't feel the best. Some of them are concussed. Some of them got, injuries. They're broken bones. You don't know
They're
what's
just
going
in
on.
pain. They're in pain, arthritis and whatnot. Yeah.
I mean, I get in normal pain chasing my kid. I can't imagine the pain of a wrestling match.
There you go. Yeah.
Especially back in the day when they actually used to do, 20, 30, 40-minute matches. And that's the thing, it's one thing when you see an 8 or 10-minute match, okay, but now I go back and watch older wrestling and I see 30, 40-minute matches. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, and these guys were doing this day after day. This is work. And like you said, the pain management was very limited of what these guys were able to do without losing their job. And if you do, you're not. What are you going to get? You're not going to get workman's comp. You're not going to be able to go and collect unemployment.
It's like living in your own world. Like WWE goes wrestling universe. It's like a world unto itself, pro wrestling, and people don't understand that. Your body gives out at some point, and it's not easy.
But I mean, isn't that almost any sport? I mean, football players, basketball, baseball,
players
boxers.
with the concussions, it's not healthy. Boxing, getting punched in the head. MMA, you're getting kicked in the head. None of it's healthy.
Speaking of that, I just seen Tyson jumping back in with Floyd Mayweather, and I know
that's
going to be more.
Grab. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's more of an exhibition. A heavy hitter against one of the best defense boxers in the world. But you're still seeing. You got to think like, damn, these guys. One of them at least they will though, but one of them at least shouldn't be in the ring. But like you said, it's a money grab. WWE does it from time to time. I mean, yes, I know John Cena was retiring, but that's also a money grab. Yeah. People are going and buying to want to see John Cena one more time.
Yeah, for thousands of dollars, no less. It's ridiculous.
Oh, that's the crazy part. I know friends that have done photos with this guy for $2,000, and I'm just like, really? Oh yeah, that's what they charge, overall with everything and getting in and all of this. And I'm just like, okay, well, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I'm not going to shame anybody because I'm not one to talk about spending money on stuff I want to do. But I think that in some levels, WWE has made it almost untouchable just to go and be able to meet at least one or two of your favorite wrestlers. Back in the day, it was almost unattainable because they didn't have all these conventions and stuff. Pre-pandemic was actually really probably the best time because it was actually accessible. If you went to like WrestleMania weekend, it didn't cost as much then. The world was a little bit cheaper. But after pandemic and just every year, I mean, wrestling is becoming more and more unattainable to go to, and especially on the major scene. Even Raw, unless I want to, sit in the bleachers, I'm spending a couple of, at least $800.
I wouldn't pay $80 to see Raw.
But I don't go. I won't go. I have friends that will ask, do I want to go? Where are you sitting? Up at the top? Well, if I'm sitting up at the top, I'll watch it at home.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pay the prices to sit in the bottom, so I'll stay home. For that amount of money, I could make a short film.
Absolutely. Create your own art. Don't support some ruthless corporation that's trying to bleed you. The Knicks, I'm a big Knicks fan. They were getting $850 in the nosebleeds for the playoffs. Like, well, I'm not paying that. Forget it.
No, I mean, you can't pay in and buy in and play into the gouge. It's sad to see the industry get that way because it was almost for everybody at a point. Like you said, people would go bring the family something to do, old people, young people, kids. Now you bring a family there. I mean, it's up there with going to the movies. It's crazy money.
Yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, I gotta start searching for my wife's car. I have no idea.
Well, good luck with that, and I do hope you find it. Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure, though, talking. Before I let you go, let me just ask you one more thing. Where can folks find you if they want to follow you on social and such?
Facebook is probably the best. Evan, Evan Ginzburg, Ginzburg. I have an Evan Ginzburg's Old School Memories page. I have, you could check out the movie 350 Days. I'm also the senior editor over at ProWrestlingStories.com. We have about 1,000 pieces on the history of wrestling. And I think the old school fans will really appreciate it. And I'm not hard to find. And I do have tons of merch, signed photos from my agent work. And yeah, check out the book. I think you'll enjoy it. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. And it was a pleasure almost speaking with your co-host.
Almost. It was close getting to
Yeah,
him,
we were
but-
close. We were close. It was
but
like
no,
it was like a specter. He came in and he like disappeared again. It was interesting.
Again, thank you. And like I said, I'm going to definitely check out these films, me being a film buff. And, obviously, just these classic films, just knowing some of the stories that you've told me, wanting to rewatch and capture these scenes and,
Yeah,
almost like watching and seeing the Easter eggs and stuff, But
appreciate
thank you
it.
again for coming on.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody at home, for watching. And as always, please support independent wrestling. Saji Stoner out!